What's up, kings and queens? It's your boy Dan from Daft Previews, and today I'm going to take you through the most comprehensive NBA player prop preview you are going to see. I'll be looking through all the key players who are playing on this three-game slate. We'll go through their form, we'll talk about their matchups, we'll go through their odds. I'll give you an indication of what I'm betting on if you choose to follow. But I do all this to give you all the information that you need to make informed and educated decisions before you decide to place that bet. I'll be sharing my screen. We'll be going through outlier.bet to sort through all of this data. It's been my go-to tool for the past week. I haven't had a losing day since I started using it. If you want to use it too, I've got a link in the description, which is going to give you a 7-day free trial. So there's nothing to lose. Check it out. Do your own research and start bagging some winners. Now let's jump into it. Let's go. We're kicking it off with the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Memphis Grizzlies. In terms of the lineups, Dame, Giannis, they're both game time decisions. Chris Middleton is out for the Bucks. Scottie Pippen Jr., he's out for the he's a game time decision for the Memphis Grizzlies. Brandon Clark, LaRavia, they're all game time decisions too. So we do have limited markets at the moment. We can only see Jaren Jackson Jr., Malik Beasley, Dame Lillard, and Vince Williams for this game. But I'll jump through their props. We'll talk about what's good, what's not. And if we find something to bet on, man, I'll be letting you know. So let's start things off with Jaren Jackson Jr. from the Milwaukee Bucks. Firstly, his points line, it's at 22.5. The odds for that, minus 110. Neither good nor bad. Have a look into his form line, though. He's covered this line in 6 out of his last 10 games. In terms of the matchup, it's a pretty good one when it comes to scoring. The Bucks, they allow the 4th most points to centers in the league. At 22.5, I'd take this every day of the week. So I'm starting to question why this is so low. His recent form, last 2 games, he has gone under. But ever since all these Memphis Grizzlies players have gone down, and the lot, Jaren Jackson Jr.'s line's been up around 26.5. In some cases, been up to 29.5. So I'd be interested to find out why his prop is so low. Is he on a minutes restriction? Is he injured? Doesn't seem to be, but it definitely requires a bit more research. So check this out. Last game against Houston, he only took 12 shots, which is rather strange. He only played 27.8 minutes in that game. So I'd be interested to really look into that because at first glance, I'd be taking the over on this straight away. In terms of line movement, the one thing that I can say is this opened up at 24.5 and it's gone down to 22.5. That happened in a 20-minute span. So I'd be quite interested to look up some news for Jaren Jackson Jr., but right now it's an absolute lean to the over. In head-to-head matchups, he scored 36 points in their last matchup against the Milwaukee Bucks. So again, 22.5, it seems rather strange for me. So I have to do a little bit of a Google, have a bit of a research to see what the hell's going on. So I've had a quick search. I couldn't find nothing. No injury. Is it the emergence of Gigi Jackson, perhaps, which is driving this lower line? It's the Rockets, these 18 points. He scored 11 points in the 4th quarter. So up until then, he was trending quite poorly. Against Memphis, he took 19 shots in that game, so the activity was there. But yeah, 22.5, it does seem quite low. But in saying that, it's probably low for a reason, right? So I'm a little bit hesitant to take that. Look into his other props, though. Let's check his assist prop out. He's hit this in 7 out of his last 10. The line's at 2.5. Great matchup. The Bucks allow the most assists to centers on the season. Looking at head-to-head matchups, he only had 2 assists in their last matchup against the Memphis Grizzlies. Against the Bucks. He did play power forward in that game. I'm not sure if that makes too much of a difference, but yeah, I haven't been a big fan of betting on Jaren Jackson Jr. props anyway. So let's have a look at his rebound line. It's at 5.5. I feel like it's always at 5.5. The matchup is okay. The Bucks are the 8th most rebounds to centers on the season. He's only hit this in 3 out of his last 10, though, and he only had 4 rebounds in his last matchup against the Bucks. So Jaren Jackson Jr., I'm quite hesitant. That line is low. I am going to say that, but look, the sports books always seem to know more than we do, right? So it's low for a reason. But let's have a look at Vince Williams Jr. because there's a few things I like about his. Well, one, his prop seems a little bit low to me too. So I don't know what the hell's going on with his Grizzlies team. But check this out for his points prop. His line's at 11.5. He's hit this in 9 of his last 10 games. The matchup is not an easy one, but it's not a hard one by any stretch of the imagination. It is the Milwaukee Bucks at the end of the day. They do allow the 12th fewest points to small forward, but he's hit this in 9 of his last 10. He's hit this in 14 of his last 20 games. So he has been producing quite consistently on this end. His last matchup against the Bucks, he only scored 3 points, but he only played 2.6 minutes. So he's in a different rotation now. He's averaging almost 35 minutes per game, and he's taking about 10 shot attempts per game, making 2 3-pointers. So Vince Williams, his points prop, if you're in one of those apps where like you pretty much just play over under, it's not a matter of choosing the best odds. Vince Williams overs in points. I think it's probably a good shout. The other one I wanted to talk through, it's not his rebounds because he's a good rebounder, but look at his form. 3 out of his last 10, it just goes up and down like an absolute yo-yo. I wouldn't have any confidence picking him on that. His assist prop I do really like for a couple of reasons. His recent form is excellent. 8, 8, 9, and 7. It's difficult to fluke that. So there's been some sort of adjustment to the way that they run their offense. In terms of the matchup, it's not good nor bad. Passing the ball wise, he's definitely playing a big role on the offensive end. He's covered this in 4 straight, and he's covered it very well. What I also love is the line at 5.5. It's plus money, baby. And you know what? And you know how I get when we're talking about plus money. I get somewhat aroused. The other pick, though, if you want to be a little bit more conservative about it, I'd be looking at his points plus his assists. So he's hit this in 9 of his last 10. We just looked at his points prop. The 11.5 seems a little bit low against a Bucks team that isn't the best defensively this season. Vince Williams, I think he covers his points line, but the odds aren't great for me. And assist-wise, his recent form in assists has been excellent. Could really make that a no-sweat bet if he continues that trend. But looking at his points and assists, you can see he's got a great hit rate. 9 out of his last 10 he's covered in. Obviously, it's 9 out of 10 because he's covered his points prop as well. But you can see over his last 4 games, his points total has been dropping slightly. Still over the line, don't get me wrong, but his assist totals have been going up. So whether he chooses to score 17 points and get fuck all assists, you'll cover. Or whether he chooses to only score 12 points or 10 points, but get a lot more assists. I think there's a better way to see him cover this. What I've done is I've taken this prop at 17.5 to get better odds, but also because the line has already started to move. Vince Williams' points and assists is one that I've taken. I did strongly consider taking just the assist prop, not gonna lie. I'm going to check that now to see what odds I'm getting. Still plus money. I still might take it, right? It's a smaller slate, so there might be more to screw around with. Okay. So now I remember. This is why I didn't take it. Because of my sports book, his line for assists is still 4.5. I want to take 5.5 and take it for plus money. That wasn't available. Points and assists still had better odds. So I did take that. But I have another sports book actually that's giving me plus 115 for his 5.5 assist prop. So I still might take it, to be honest. Why the fuck not? His recent form does arouse me. I know where the Bucks are sitting defensively, not the absolute best. So yeah, Vince Williams assists, Vince Williams points and assists. I'll leave it up to you, but those are some things that I do like. Let's have a look at Dame Dollar. His points prop is 24.5. You can get that for plus money right now if you look around. He is a game time decision, but most likely to play. In his last 10 games, he's covered this line 5 times. So neither good nor bad. The matchup, the Grizzlies are ranked 15th in points allowed to point guards. So smack bang in the middle of the league. He hasn't versed the Memphis Grizzlies since he's joined the Milwaukee Bucks. So there's no real form in that. I personally haven't played a Dame Lillard prop for quite some time. I'm not going to start today. I did consider an under in his 3-pointers, not going to lie. The line's at 2.5 his line's at 2.5. But if you go the under 2.5, you're getting that at plus money. But when I looked a little bit further into it, the Memphis Grizzlies, even though they're great defensively, they actually allow quite a few 3-pointers, a high percentage. So they don't defend the 3-point line very well. And obviously, if I'm looking at teams under in 3 points, that's not going to work out for me. Let's have a look at his assist prop, though. His line for assists is 6.5. You can get that for plus money, too. The Grizzlies allow the 12th most assists to point guards on the season. He's hit this in 4 out of his last 10 games, though. So, yeah, for the form is not great for Dame. The odds are pretty good. The matchup is okay, but yeah, his form's just not strong enough. I pretty much run the same strategy whenever I make most of my picks, and this isn't talking to me. So, even though I think he can have a good game here, it's not worth me putting the bet on. So I'll just leave it at that. We do have lines from Malik Beasley, though. Points line we're looking at is 11.5 for him. He's hit this in 4 out of his last 10 games, so not great. In terms of the matchup, it's a difficult one. The Grizzlies allow the 4th fewest points to shooting guards on the season. So he's hit this in only 4 of his last 10. In his last 20, he's hit this 8 times. So a very similar hit rate. So that's not screaming out to me. There was a time probably in the last week where I thought his rebounds and assist props, they weren't looking too bad. It probably was his rebounds because his assist prop's not very convincing. Lines at 1.5, but you can get that for plus 150. How hard is it to get 2 assists? Surely. He's hit this in 6 out of his last 10. He's only hit this in 9 out of his last 20. The matchup, it's not screaming out to me either, so I will pass on that. Rebound wise for Malik Beasley, here's some good ebbs and flows. Goes up and down. He's hit this in 6 out of his last 10. But the matchup is a difficult one. 9th fewest rebounds to shooting guards. So that doesn't get me feeling aroused at all. Given it's a small slate, we might as well look at his 3-point prop. Lines at 2.5. He's covered this quite well. 6 out of his last 10. 6 out of his last 7, actually. But the Grizzlies allow the fewest 3-pointers to shooting guards. So they allow a lot of 3-pointers to point guards and barely any to shooting guards. So, yeah. Look, this particular game, Vince Williams is the player that I'm liking. Points and assists, but also just his assists. But those are the two, and I'll leave it up to you if you decide to jump on. The next game, it's the Golden State Warriors versus the Utah Jazz. Back-to-backs involved in this one, limited lineups. There's no game time decisions or laid outs that I can see so far at the moment, but limited lines nonetheless. So for the Warriors, we only have Steph Curry and Jonathan Kuminga props available at the minute. Actually, that's an absolute lie. I had bloody filters on, which was getting in the way. Let me go back to the Bucks game real quick. Shit. Who are we missing here? Let's have a look at Giannis. My God. I'm going to keep it 100 with you all. Before I started filming tonight, put my daughter down for bed after a big day of work, and then I fell asleep. Woke up, an absolute mess. I was like, damn, I got to get this damn video out. So I was absolutely buckled, obviously still half asleep, but I'm awake now. You got me. I'm here. All right, Giannis. His points line's at 29.5. He's hit this in 5 out of his last 10. The Grizzlies rank 15th in points allowed to power forwards. So nothing major going on there. Giannis, he only scored 19 points in their last matchup against Memphis. That was in 2022. So I wouldn't overreact to that. There's nothing on this page giving me an indication whether Giannis is going to cover this or whether he's going to go under. I have no idea. Don't have a strong feeling about that. Assist-wise, his line's at 6.5. He's covered in 4 out of his last 10. The Grizzlies allow the 5th fewest assists to power forwards on the season. In head-to-head matchups, he's got 5 assists in that last game. So Memphis actually blew these guys out by 40 points the last time they played. Giannis did go under his assist prop. Rebound prop, the Grizzlies allow the 9th fewest rebounds to power forwards. Giannis has hit his rebound prop of 12.5 in 2 out of his last 10 games. So the one thing I like to do with Giannis, right, because I rarely back his... I don't think I ever have, because backed his over. And look, I would remember if I did because his name is just so goddamn long, right? Sometimes if I want to bet on Giannis, I just bet the under because his lines are crazy high. 49.5 is his line. He's hit this in 45% of games this year, 45% in the last 20. So he goes under more often than not. I'm not desperate to find a play, so I'm leaning the under on Giannis on pretty much all of his props, but I'm not encouraging anybody to take that. Having a look at Brook Lopez, lines at 11.5. He's hit this in 5 out of his last 10. Let me just switch this to the over. He's gone under in 3 straight, though. The matchup against the Memphis Grizzlies is apparently a positive one. They allowed 10th most points to centers on the season, but that has really changed over the last week or two. Ever since Tillman got traded and Jaren Jackson Jr. has been playing center, they've really started to defend that center position a lot better. Head-to-head matchups, he only scored 4 points the last time they played. So Brook Lopez, I'm not really feeling that. Quick look at his rebound prop. The Grizzlies are now the 2nd most rebounds to centers, but Brook Lopez only hit this in 4 out of his last 10. So not very convincing there from old mate Brook. I want to have a look at his first quarter points because I took his first quarter points prop when he only scored 2 points against Miami. That sucked. His line was 3.5. He missed 2 open 3-pointers. Broke my heart, but... yeah, look, that could be something I entertain because it's still at plus money. He still hit it in 7 of his last 10. But look, after the excellent day that I just had, I'm not desperate to find more bets. Just want to stay composed because, like a lot of bettors out there, I get overexcited sometimes and I place too many bets. And it does get me from time to time. But outside of that, I wouldn't not too keen to look at any of these other props in this game. So let's get to the Warriors and the Jazz game. Now that I figured out all the props are actually available. Let's kick things off with Steph Curry. Had a monster game today. They still lost against the Clippers, but he was an absolute beast today. And he's got a really insane shooting streak that's going on at the moment. So let's talk a bit about it. In terms of his points, his line's at 29.5. He's hit this in 6 out of his last 10 games. The Jazz allow the 14th fewest points to point guards. Last 2 games against the Jazz, he scored 33 and 25 points. Mr. Steph Curry. So in terms of points, I do lean to the over, but that's not what I'm going to be placing a bet on. What I am feeling like placing a bet on is this, and I'm pretty confident I may, provided that the odds are still in my favor. So looking at his 3-point prop, his line to make 3-pointers is 5.5. What I love about it, though, is you get it at plus money. In terms of the matchup, the Jazz allow the 12th most 3-pointers made to point guards. Now, Steph Curry's hit this in 4 straight. He's hit this in 7 out of his last 10. His 3-pointers have just been going off. I just want to check his attempts real quick. In his last 10 games, he's averaging 14.8 3-pointers per game. But check out the last 4. 16, 16, 16, and 19 3-point attempts. Now, I actually play basketball twice a week in 2 different leagues. I probably wouldn't attempt 16 3-pointers. If you include the shoot around, I wouldn't attempt that many 3-pointers in a month. And this guy's doing it every single night. He's an absolute machine. So just on pure volume alone, if he's going to be shooting the ball this month, the Warriors are trying to make a run. They just had a loss. If he's taken 15 shots, I'll take him to hit 6 of those. He's shooting at 47%. So you can get this for plus money. I've just placed the bet, so definitely still plus money for me. But Steph Curry over in his 3-pointers, I do like that. Looking at his assist prop, though, the Jazz, they allow the most assists to point guards on the season. Steph Curry's hit this line in 5 out of his last 10. He had 10 assists in his last matchup against the Utah Jazz. So 5.5, if that's still close to plus money or plus money, that's also a bet that I would entertain. I don't want to put too many bets on the same player, but yeah, I do like it, but I do like the 3-point bet a lot more. Looking at his rebounds, the Jazz allow the 8th most rebounds to point guards. Steph Curry's hit this in 7 out of his last 10, and he's covered it in his last 2 games against the Utah Jazz, but that's a line of only 3.5. Yeah, I wouldn't take it at those odds, so you'd probably be looking at 4.5, close to plus money. That might be entertaining, but I want to have a look at his rebounds plus assists because the matchup is good. So I figure out how to use my computer. The matchup is good. Rebounds and assists. So his line for that is at 9.5, minus 105. He's hit that in 6 out of his last 10. The matchup is very good against the Utah Jazz. He had 10 assists and 6 rebounds when they matched up earlier this season. So I don't mind that also for Steph Curry, but definitely the 3-point prop. That's what's got my attention. Let's have a look at Jonathan Kuminga. Looking at his points prop. Now, Jonathan Kuminga's really started to go cold. Not really, but he's really starting to regress, is what I'll say. His points prop for this game is at 19.5. He went through this stretch where he's getting 20 points every single night. The public started to bet on him, and then he's really started to tank it. Matchup is a great one, though. The Utah Jazz allow the most points to power forwards on the season. Kuminga's hit this in 5 out of his last 10, but only 1 of his last 5. His last matchups against the Utah Jazz, he scored 14 points this season, 9 and 24 in prior years, but 14 points when they last matched up. In that game, he played 27 minutes and he shot the ball 10 times. Looking at his recent form in the last 5 games, he's averaging 14 shot attempts and he's playing 31 minutes per game. So a little bit more action than he did in the previous game this year. But yeah, I wanted to bet the under for Jonathan Kuminga, and then I saw the matchup, and the pace of this game should be somewhat high. So I am leaning to the under because I don't believe 19.5 is the right line for him. But in a game like this, back-to-back, defense might be a little bit loose. That both teams should get up and down in this one. He could get some easy buckets, but I am a little bit hesitant, but I am leaning the under. Looking at his assists, he's covered in 6 out of his last 10 games. Had 6 assists against the Clippers. Against the Jazz, covered in 2 of his last 4. But once again, the matchup's great. The Jazz allow the most assists to power forwards. So the odds for that aren't great. You'd have to take 3.5 if you're looking at a single bet. Looking at his rebounds, he's covered that in 6 out of his last 10 as well. The Jazz ranked 16th in rebounds allowed to power forwards. Didn't rebound, hasn't rebounded well against Utah in the past. So Jonathan Kuminga, I'm not feeling that one too much either. Draymond, I don't know anyone who bets on Draymond Green anymore. With Klay Thompson, nobody bets on Klay Thompson, so I'm not going through him. Let's go through some of these Jazz players' lines. We'll kick it off with Jordan Clarkson, actually. Sometimes I forget to go through Jordan Clarkson's line purely because he's coming off the bench. He's got Filipino blood in him, and so do I, so we've got to represent. But looking at his points line, his line's at 17.5. He's only covered this twice out of his last 10 games, which is ridiculous. The matchup, the Warriors allow the 13th fewest points to shooting guards on the season. So matchup, indicate an under. His recent form, indicate an under as well. Checking his form against the Warriors, he's hit this line every single time. So there's your contradiction. Now, if you're going to bet a Jordan Clarkson, do you put stock on the fact that his recent form is a bit average? Or do you put stock on the fact that this guy might love playing the Golden State Warriors and take his over 17.5 for plus money? I'm pausing as if you're going to respond, and I know you're not going to, so I apologize. But yeah, look, I'm a little bit hesitant. I'd probably lean to the over because when you see form this way, right, his recent form is so bad, but the line stays high, the sports books are trying to tell you something. So, but I'm just not going to bet Jordan Clarkson, but I do find things like that quite interesting. His assist line is at 4.5. He's hit this in 4 out of his last 10. The Warriors allow the least assist to shooting guards. So Jordan Clarkson's gone under in his last 2. That's quite interesting. But JC, I'm not going to be touching him. Walker Kessler, I think I just want to look at his points and his rebounds. So his last 10 games, he's hit this line 6 times. The matchup with the Warriors is okay. They rank 18th. He has hit this in 3 straight games. And against the Golden State Warriors, he's hit this in 2 out of his last 4. Rebound-wise, his line for that is 8.5. He's hit that in 3 out of his last 10 games. Consistently getting 7+, though, so that's pretty cool. And then against the Warriors, he hit this 2 out of his last 4. In terms of the matchup, the Warriors allow the 11th fewest rebounds to centers, which is quite strange to me because the Warriors are undersized at the center position all the time. And it's not like they play a center who shoots the ball either. It's Draymond or Kevon Looney, right? So interested to see how well they slow down centers. But because of that, I won't be placing any bets on Walker Kessler. Having a look at Lauri Markkanen, his points props at 22.5. See what we can get here. He's hit this in 5 out of his last 10 games. The matchup, the Warriors rank 17th to points to power forwards. So 5 out of his last 10, nothing impressive there. And look at his last 3 games against the Warriors. He's hit this in 2 out of 3, but in their last matchup, he only scored 19 points. So that doesn't get me somewhat aroused at all. Rebound-wise, his line's at 8.5. He's hit this in 4 out of his last 10. He's gone under in 3 straight. It is a good matchup for rebounds. The Warriors allow the 5th most rebounds to power forwards, but head-to-head form, it's highly inconsistent too. So I'm not loving what I'm seeing so far from these 3 games, which is a bit disappointing. But Lauri Markkanen, you do whatever you want, brother. You won't be hurting my feelings tomorrow. Colin Sexton, his points props at 18.5. He's hit this in 6 out of his last 10. The matchup, the Warriors allow the 13th fewest points to shooting guards, but they do allow the 4th most points to point guards. So it's weird. Colin Sexton lines up as a 2, but when you watch him play, he plays like the 1. So he's a combo guard. I get it. Can be a little bit difficult when you're looking at matchups. But look, he's hit this in 6 out of his last 10. He scored 22 points in his last matchup against the Golden State Warriors. So that's quite advantageous. So look, maybe for 15, but even the 15, I'm a little bit hesitant to take for Colin Sexton. Let's have a look at his assist prop. 6 out of his last 10, but only 1 out of his last 5. Last matchup against the Warriors, he only had 5 assists. So, yeah. Colin Sexton, it's not bad, but it's not what I want to see. John Collins, now I've bet on John Collins heaps of times this year. He's really impressed me. Well, actually, I take that back. He hasn't impressed me. It's just his lines have been really low based on what he's capable of getting. So I've been betting on him a lot. I'm not a John Collins fan. Sorry, John Collins, if you're watching this. But his points props at 14.5. He's hit this in 7 out of his last 10 games. He has slowed down a little bit. He's only covered, he went under this in his last 2, scoring only 11 points. Against the Golden State Warriors, believe it or not, last time they played each other, he scored 11 points. Well, I don't know why it's right here, so I don't even have to go to that other tab. But let's dive that game a little bit. He played 28 minutes in that game, which is in line with his average. He only attempted 6 shots in that game against the Golden State Warriors. He normally takes about 12 shots per game. So that's quite interesting. I think what we're seeing differently is John Collins is not playing center anymore. He's playing more power forward, meaning Lauri Markkanen's playing more small forward. We're seeing a bit of adjustment here to John Collins and his play style. I haven't checked this before, but I'm going to make the assumption his rebounds are down, and they're not. So that assumption was completely wrong. His line's at 9.5. You can get that for plus money. He's hit this in 6 out of his last 10. Good matchup for rebounds for power forwards, but he only had 7 rebounds in his last matchup against the Warriors. And for him to get 9.5 rebounds when you've got Walker Kessler and Lauri Markkanen in the same starting lineup, I think that might eat into his opportunities there. So I'm not taking any bets on John Collins in this game, obviously. Trying to see who else there is that I may have missed. Keontae George. Let's check Keontae George, but I also want to check Andrew Wiggins as well. Keontae George, his points props at 13.5. He's covered this in 6 out of his last 10. Actually, that's a lie. He's covered this in 4 out of his last 10. The matchup is a good one. The Warriors allow the 4th most points to point guards. He only scored 5 points in that last matchup against the Warriors, though. Looking at assists, his line's at 5.5. He's only hit this in 3 out of his last 10 games, and he only had 4 assists against the Warriors last time. So I'm not feeling Keontae. Let's have a look at Andrew Wiggins. So his points props at 12.5. He has now hit this in 5 out of his last 10. The matchup is pretty good. The Jazz allow the 7th most points to small forwards on the season. Andrew Wiggins covered this line the last time they played. He scored 17 points. Now, I want to show you guys something which is pretty interesting. And I had a quick look at this before. Firstly, check out his assist numbers, right? He's hit this in 6 out of his last 10. The matchup with the Jazz is a pretty good one. They allow the 2nd most assists to small forwards. Andrew Wiggins did not get an assist against them in their last game. All right? So you look at his assist, you think that's bloody inconsistent. Obviously, his points-wise, that's inconsistent. But when you put these suckers together, check this shit out. Points plus assists for Andrew Wiggins. Where the hell are they? I'm losing my mind here. There we go. All right. Points plus assists, his line's at 14.5. Now he's hit that in 7 out of his last 10. So in some of the games where he did fuck all with assists, he scored a shitload of points here and here. And there's a few games where he doesn't cover his points prop, but he gets the assists. So in terms of the matchup, points and assists are a pretty good one. So he's hit this in 7 out of his last 10. He still technically hit this in his last matchup against the Utah Jazz, despite getting no assists. And the time prior, he had 20 points and 5 assists. That was in 2022. So I'm not putting too much stock into that. But it's quite interesting when you combine the props and you look at it over a 10-game sample, you suddenly find better hit rates. So I'm leaning on this at the moment. I haven't definitely placed this bet, but it's something that I'm considering. I don't want to force any bets out, but I did find that interesting, and I thought I'd share that with you. Other than that, there's not much that's screaming out to me in this game. My best pick in this game, Steph Curry points, followed by not points. Take that back. Steph Curry 3-pointers over 5.5 plus money, followed by Steph Curry assists. I don't mind that as well. Putting a quick pause on the preview. I wanted to thank everyone who joined T's Telegram group based off the last video. If it's your first time seeing this, a friend of mine, Tips with T, he sells his NBA picks. He's extremely profitable. 1,600 units of profit in the NBA in the last 4 seasons. In January, he made 174 units profit. He's the best NBA bettor that I have seen. His approach, somewhat aggressive. It's not made for everyone. You need to use strict bankroll management. You need to have a clear understanding of how to bet if you're going to bet his ways. But the service is amazing. He has 1 day left of his free look period, meaning if you sign up today, you'll get the free bets, free picks for all the 3 games, whatever he's got. And then it does close to the public, meaning those people who have already subscribed to his service, they're the only ones for the remainder of the season and playoffs who are going to have access to his picks. So the link for his Telegram is in the description box below. Feel free to jump in, see if he cashes tomorrow. And if he does cash tomorrow, take your winnings, pay for the rest of the season, and then you're set. Then it's really up to you whether you decide to follow his tips or not. But let's get back into the preview. Jumping into the last game, it's the Minnesota Timberwolves versus the Portland Trailblazers. Now, Ant Edwards is a game time decision in this one. Henderson's a game time decision in this one too for the Portland Trailblazers. But a few players still on the board. Let's kick it off with DeAndre Ayton. So his point line's at 14.5, and it's at plus money. The matchup's a difficult one. It's against the Minnesota Timberwolves and Rudy Gobert. They allow the second fewest points to centers on the season. Now, this is a home game for Portland, so that's very important to mention. DeAndre Ayton's covered this line in 8 of his last 10 games. In head-to-head matchups, they just versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Timberwolves won by 12 points. DeAndre Ayton scored 22 points in that game in only 12 shots. So he shot a really high percentage in this game. So I do like what I'm seeing here. Despite the matchup being difficult, those fears have been put at ease a little bit by him scoring 22 in his last matchup against them. I am wary of teams playing each other back to back because similar to playoffs, teams make adjustments. You rarely see the same player kill the same team in back-to-back games. I do like his over in points. It's because it's at plus money, right? Plus 100 for a line. He's hit at an 80% hit rate. He's still playing at home, and he just hit this against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So it gives me some confidence. If we look at his last 10 games at home, DeAndre Ayton has covered in 5 straight games at home. And not only has he covered, he's very much covered that easily. So I would have taken this line. If it stayed at plus money, I would have taken it up to 16.5. But it's at 14.5. It's a very achievable for him. He's hit it at 53% this season, at 100% in his last 5 games. So DeAndre Ayton points, I do like that. His rebounds, he did crush his rebound line in his last game against the Timberwolves. Check that out, 16 rebounds. That I'm a little that goes up and down. That swings like an absolute yo-yo up and down for Ayton. Plus, the odds aren't great. His line's at 9.5. He's got the most difficult matchup when it comes to rebounds. He's hit this in 6 out of his last 10. And I know he just had 16 and 17 rebounds in his last 2 games, but these feel like outliers to me, and it's not something that you can continue to expect. Whereas on the point side of things, there's a better level of consistency there. That's why I do like his points prop a lot better than his rebound prop. We'll stick with the Trailblazers first, and then we'll jump into the Timberwolves. Anthony Simons, his points props at 22.5. He's hit this 4 out of his last 5, 6 out of his last 10. In terms of matchups, though, he's got a real difficult matchup. The Timberwolves allow the fewest points to shooting guards and the 4th fewest points to point guards. Now, the good news for Anthony Simons is that Anthony Edwards, he's a game time decision. He's an absolute beast on the defensive end. He might have had the Simons assignment, but regardless, Simon scored 20 points in the last matchup against the Timberwolves. Like, he went under, but still scored 20 points. I haven't played too many bets on Anthony Simons, and when I have, it's purely been when he's had a great matchup. Looking at his form against the Wolves, he's hit this in 1 out of his last 5, but he's gone under in 4 straight games against them. So, yeah, I'd be a little bit hesitant to take that. His assist props at 5.5. He's covered in 4 out of his last 10. The Wolves allow the 7th fewest assists to point guards. So automatically, I start to lean to the under. He had 5 assists in his last matchup against the Wolves, and he's gone under in his last 3. So, lean to the under there. But at the same time, if the Trailblazers, they're already missing Brogdon, Scoot Henderson's a game time decision. Anthony Simons might get a lot more minutes at point guard, right? So the opportunities could be there, but given what we currently know, there's no guarantee. So I wouldn't confidently make any calls on that for Anthony Simons. Looking at Jeremy Grant. Now, I haven't placed too many bets on Jeremy Grant because he's a bit unpredictable, right? But what I was crazy enough to do, this game where he scored 49 points, I think his line in this game was like 29.5 or something. And I was like, that is so high for Jeremy Grant. Like, this guy, he's a scorer, but he's not that great of a scorer. I took the under 29.5 points. I think he had like 24 points at halftime. Finishes the game with 49. One of the worst reads I've ever made in my life. But anyway, Jeremy Grant, his line's at 19.5. He's covered it in 5 out of his last 10. So neither good nor bad. He's been playing a lot more small forward these days. In terms of the matchup, the Wolves allow the 12th fewest points to small forwards. Jeremy Grant struggled in the last game. He scored only 12 points. Head-to-head form, he's covered this in 2 out of his last 5. So both games this season, he's gone well under his points prop, Jeremy Grant. Quick look at his rebound prop. Line's at 3.5. You can get that for plus money. He's hit this in 6 out of his last 10. He only had 1 rebound against the Timberwolves last time. Fair enough. DeAndre Ayton grabbed all of them. Looking at his head-to-heads, in the 2 games they've played this season, he's only had 1 rebound. So, yeah, I wouldn't be feel confident in taking his over in rebounds, let me tell you. And who else is there? Matisse Thybulle, but his props aren't available. Let's have a look at the T-Wolves then. Let's start with Rudy Gobert, because I do like some of these lines. I'll just check my sportsbook right now. I might have actually taken one. Let me double check. And I have not. So that was an absolute lie. So Rudy's points line's at 14.5. It's minus 119. I think that's what's really held me back. Just the odds. 119. He's hit this in 7 out of his last 10. He scored 16 points against the Minnesota Timberwolves. In terms of the matchup, he's covered this in 5 out of his last 6. The matchup is great. The Trailblazers, sorry, I said Timberwolves. Trailblazers, he's covered in 5 out of his last 6. The matchup is good. The Blazers allow the 6th most points to centers on the season. So all of this makes me want to take the over. And I do think he'll go take the over, but I'm being a real stingy bastard at the moment, which means I don't want to spend money and not get too much back. And the odds is the only thing that's holding me back. I might look to play Rudy for, you could go Rudy over 14.5 into probably Timberwolves money line perhaps, and you'll get over plus money. But I'm not very good at picking sides and totals. Whenever I seem to pick one, it seems to blow up in my face. But yeah, Rudy for 15 points. It doesn't have the greatest odds in the world, to be honest. It's starting to drift. So this line might move to 16.5 or 15.5. I apologize. And at 15.5, I get a little bit nervous, right? Because then he's barely covered. So I'm not overconfident in that. Looking at his rebound prop, the line's at 12.5. He has covered this in 6 out of his last 10. The Blazers allow the 10th most rebounds to centers. He had 15 rebounds in his last matchup against them. And in head-to-head matchups, he's rebounded quite well too. He's covered that in 3 consecutive games. So I think another option to look at here is, given that he's been so consistent, is maybe his points and rebounds, 28.5. I think I took a Rudy Gobert prop, points and rebounds, not too long ago, actually, now that I think about it. Yeah, he's covered this in 5 out of his last 6 games against the Blazers. So that's a good one. In his last 10 games, he's only covered this in 4 out of his last 10, though. So I think when I took his points and rebounds prop, was like 26.5. So yeah, look, I'm a little bit on the fence with this one. The odds are probably the best for his points and rebounds, but then you're really putting a lot of stock into that head-to-head matchup. Yeah, so like, I'm a little bit hesitant. The line's moved from 28 to 27. It's bouncing. So clearly there's a lot of people who like it. There's a lot of people who don't. So given the uncertainty, I'm just going to choose not to play it. I've made a decision. And if you see a Rudy Gobert prop when I put my final bets in the pinned comment, feel free to absolutely roast me because I deserve it. Let's have a look at Ant-Man. His points props at 26.5. He has hit this in 5 out of his last 10. He scored 41 points against the Portland Trailblazers last time. I actually remember the full preview I did in this one. The last time these guys played, when I previewed the game, I said Anthony Edwards is the best matchup in points, rebounds, and assists. He should absolutely smash it, but I'm not betting on him purely because his form is inconsistent, and that makes me a little bit nervous. Anthony Edwards scored 41 points. What else did he have? 41 points, 2 assists, and 4 rebounds. So he absolutely destroyed them on the points front. So having a look at that, he's hit it in 5 of his last 10. The Blazers give up the most points in head-to-head matchups. That's what it looks like. So 3 out of his last 6 games. Here's a game-time decision. The matchup is great, right? The matchup is excellent. But again, I'm still hesitant to back Anthony Edwards. Now, I actually like him as a basketball player. I don't buy into the whole he's the next MJ thing. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. But I do like him. I like that he's a two-way player. I like the athleticism. I like his ability to create his own shot, aggressiveness to attacking the rim. It's just he's still inconsistent scoring points. Like his shot selection is questionable at times. Not as bad as Jason Tatum, but shit, Anthony Edwards, I can't do it. I can't do it, bro. He'll probably have a great game if he plays, but I can't bet on him. But because he's a game time decision, we don't have lines for Cat and all the other players. So look, a little bit limited, I must say. So let me do a quick recap of where I've pretty much landed. So I did a short list of bets that I do like, and I placed a few before I started recording. I had a real quick look. And ultimately where I landed before I did this video, normally when I do the video, I find more plays that I like because I'm going through every single pick. And what I ultimately landed on was DeAndre Ayton, 15 points plus money. Vince Williams, 6 assists plus money.
Vince Williams points and assists, and Steph Curry over 5.5 3-pointers. So if the pin comment's not done by the time you watch this, at least you know that's the picks that I'm on. But look, it's only a 3-game slate, and then we go into the break, I believe, and then you guys aren't going to see me for a couple of days. So I don't know what you guys are going to do, especially for those of you in the US. Wake up at first thing in the morning and listen to this wonderful voice of mine. I don't know what you're going to do. I know what I'm going to do. I've got a few different content creating ideas. I'm not going to tell you what they are, but stay tuned for that. I've got something. I'm working on something on the side. But look, it's only a 3-game slate. If you don't have any confidence to bet on any of these games, players, props, then just don't. Practice a bit of self-discipline, why don't you? Enjoy the weekend off, or bet on a different sport. Who knows what you guys are going to do? But hey, I'm done. I'm rambling. If you guys have made it this far, though, and have heard the ramble, I apologize, but also thank you for sticking around. Every second that you watch these videos does make a difference. I appreciate you for getting this far. I will see you guys in the next one. I don't know when that's going to be, given there aren't going to be many more games to preview. I might have some free time on my hands, so I could all of a sudden just jump in and start doing something. I also am considering, maybe do I do a live event, a live Q&A, if that's something you guys would want to fuck with. But let me know in the comment section. I read every single one, but I'll see you when I see you. Peace.
Sub to the channel cause your boy's getting busy. Coming to you live from the west side of Sydney. We've got the free picks and the juice on the daily. It's all free, you don't even have to pay me.